All right, CAD students, welcome to week 4 of our running course. We're going to continue our discussion on posture, mobility, and stability by moving from the pelvis a little south to the hip. We've already talked about the hip, but let's look at it further. That common muscle imbalance is seen with tight hip flexors and weak glutes. I want to talk about the importance of your glutes. Okay, so you can see that when I am standing on one leg, right? So if I'm just standing on my right leg and this leg is off the ground, you can see that my support is here. Most of my body weight is off to this side, right? So when you are running, right, you're mid-stride right here, like this hip is having to stabilize you from falling this way, okay? So that motion is, again, you're driving forward, so you're driving into hip extension, right? You're pushing that leg back off the ground, but you're also having to stabilize so you don't drop this into this position. And that motion is actually your hip abductors that come out this way. Okay, there's also a portion of it that would be your external rotators. The muscle that does that are your glutes, right? So your glute max, which most people are familiar with. You also have a glute medius and minimus. A lot of people will strengthen their glute max through hip extension, but they will neglect their glute med and glute min by not addressing hip abduction and hip external rotation. So I'm going to show you some exercises that will strengthen all of those and hopefully help you with both performance in running, but also injury prevention. Because again, another thing that we can look at with the hip is the hip. If I'm strong and sturdy here, my kneecap is going to point straight forward, okay? People that are weak in the hip, when they get into this single limb stance, they're running here, they collapse this way, okay? They internally rotate and they flex and they adduct their hip. What that causes is the patella, the kneecap, then no longer tracks like it should, and so they'll develop something called patellofemoral syndrome, which most people just describe as, hey, my knee hurts, right? So if you have knee pain, it could be because of weak hips and or tight hips. So let's look at how to address those. I'm going to show you a number of stretches and then some strengthening tasks. All right, so stretches. I know a number of you have taken yoga, maybe from Wendy or Nelly, so you're familiar with the pigeon stretch. That's one of the static stretches that I typically do. So static means it's just a position we're going to get into and hold. And I mentioned holding stretches for 30 seconds. Studies have shown that the difference between holding a stretch for 15 seconds and 30 seconds is substantial, right? As far as the flexibility you're gonna gain. But if you stretch beyond 30, say you stretch for a minute, you're not gaining that much in terms of flexibility. Just what studies have shown, and so that's why I typically say hold your stretches for at least 30 seconds. Your pigeon stretch, let's get the shoes off. Okay, it's just done. You can do it, get into it from a forward lunge. Gonna drop yourself down, kind of send your knee off kilter here. If you have knee pain or a bad knee, you can just maybe only go about this low, or where you feel comfortable, where you feel a stretch. The ideal stretch, right, is to get down. I'm gonna bring my chest to my knee, and once down here, I'm gonna hold it for about 30 seconds. What I'm looking to do there, right, is your hip is ball and socket joint, right? So socket with a ball inside. I'm looking to create like a distraction there. There's this capsule that surrounds that, and I want to just stretch that capsule. If I can stretch that capsule and create a little space here, I can gain flexibility in all planes, okay? So pigeon stretch, give that a try. You're going to hold it for, again, about 30 seconds. Do it on each leg. I'm trying to move through these quickly because I don't want to have too long of a video for you, and we've got a number of exercises to get through. Let's see, next one, hamstring stretch, okay? So another static stretch that I typically do. You can use a towel, right? You can use a towel, you can use a strap that you can get from Big Five. I'll show you just with the towel because I know that's what most people have at home. Okay, you're gonna lie on your back. Okay. Now my position is going to be, I want to keep my back flat like we've been working on just with your core strengthening, right? So keep a little tension in your back. This knee can be flexed with your foot flat on the ground. And I'm going to grab the strap or the towel and or strap with 2 hands. I'm going to take it up as far as I can. And I'm just going to hold this again for 30 seconds. You should feel a stretch, right? If you feel pain, you're being too aggressive. Okay, so at this stage, let's just work on feeling that stretch for 30 seconds. Okay, in physical therapy, when I'm evaluating someone, I'm looking to see if they have adequate hamstring length. I'm looking for them to be able to get to 90 degrees. So I'm kind of just there, right? You evaluate somebody in there here, well then they definitely need to stretch their hamstrings, right? So I'm getting to here, holding for 30 seconds, and of course, I'm gonna switch. You must keep your knee straight, right? So if to get to this position you must bend your knee, then I want you to go lower and straighten your knee. All right, so that's static stretch number 2. All right, let's look at a couple dynamic stretches. One is simply we're going to stretch our adductors. Your adductors are the muscles of your legs that bring your legs together, right? Those are often tight in people, and more importantly, the abductors are often weak. But in order to get our adequate abduction, we must have substantial range of motion to go into that position. So you're just going to go into a side-to-side lunge, right? So you're here, going to step to one side, sink down and stretch here, come back up. You can hold this position, right? So this can be our static stretch where we're going to hold it for about 30 seconds. Or it can be a position where you're just going to go slowly through the motion. Okay, so here's our static stretch where we hold, again, about 30 seconds. Here's our dynamic stretch where we just slowly go through the motion. What is typically prescribed is before activity would be more the dynamic stretching. After an activity, right, so after your run, more of the static stretching. All right, so we did our side-to-side lunge. We're going to do another dynamic stretch that can also be held statically. Go this position. So this one you're going to go into a forward lunge, right? So I'm stretching this hip flexor. I can hold that. Then I'm going to push back, and I'm going to stretch my hamstrings here. Okay, and then I'm going to go forward into my lunge, and then sit back into my hamstrings. Go forward into my lunge, and now it becomes a dynamic stretch. Okay? We don't want any quick movements. We don't want any bouncing once you're here. You're just here and you're holding, and you're back and forth. Okay, you go back and forth about 10 times, then you would switch legs, right? You're gonna forward lunge with the left, stretch the right hip flexor, bounce back, and get your hamstrings. Okay, and so that's a good dynamic stretch. A stretch I typically do, they call the warrior lunge. Real similar to what I just showed you. Alright, garbage truck's coming by. I'm hoping you can hear me. Lunge. Then you're going to rotate to the side lunge. Push back. Another forward lunge. And rotate to the side lunge. Hamstring. Alright, garbage truck left, so here goes that again. It's going to be a forward lunge. Okay. I'm going to rotate to a side lunge. I'm going to rotate further, hamstring stretch, and I'm going to push back up and then go into a forward lunge on this side. All right, so there are 5 stretches for you to try, and then we've got some strengthening activities to do. So I wanted to address making the strengthening task I gave you for your abdomen a little more aggressive, a little more difficult. We still are going to do the posterior pelvic tilt, but we're going to do what's called a dead bug. Okay, so you're going to be in this position, knees are bent, feet are on the floor, posterior pelvic tilt. So you're smashing your low back in, and what you're going to do is you're going to take one arm above, one arm below, and then you're going to lift your feet up. Again, you got to maintain that pelvic tilt. Okay, and then let's do this. Let's take whatever leg. If I have my right arm up, let's put my left leg out. And then I'm going to keep that pelvic tilt. I got to keep my tummy tight, keep my back pressed flat against the mat, and I'm going to rotate. Okay, it may not feel hugely difficult, but what we're doing is I'm trying to simulate what you're doing when you're running, right? So you're moving your extremities and you're having to stabilize. I know there's more intense exercises we could do for our abdomen, but really when we're running, it's more of a sustained light contraction that you're gonna be holding. All right, so that's to touch back on the pelvis, right? We're gonna have a tight abdomen so we can bring the front of our pelvis up out of that anterior pelvic tilt. All right, let's look at bridge. Now, if we're gonna strengthen your glutes, right, we can do all types of bridging. Okay. You're here, same position we were for your posterior pelvic tilt and your dead bugs. Hands are at your side, knees are bent, feet are on the floor. You're gonna push through your heels and just lift into a bridge. Okay, up and down nice and slow. You wanna make sure when we do these bridges that you feel the contraction in your glutes and not your hamstrings, okay? Again, the glutes are what we're targeting. Most people have tight hamstrings anyway from that 90-90 position sitting in chairs. So to progress the bridge, maybe I can turn this a little bit. Okay, so if I'm progressing from here to here, you can put weight on your pelvis and do your bridges, right? So if I have a dumbbell, what you do? All right, I can take this. I can put weight on my pelvis and still do my bridge. I would say maybe even better than that is to go to single leg, right? So same position. This leg now goes out straight, is not touching the ground, and I'm pushing up and coming back down. So this I would feel in my right glutes. And so there's some bridges. All right, so they've done studies where they put needle electrodes into people's hip abductors and hip external rotators, so glute medius and glute minimus, and they want to see which exercises make those muscles fire the most. What they found is it's the fire hydrant. So fire hydrant without resistance looks like this. Okay, quadruped, so hands and knees. If you picture a male dog approaching a fire hydrant, that's where the name comes from, right? So I'm here, and I'm gonna lift my leg to the side. Okay, so it's not an extension, that's glute max. It's lifting to the side and either doing repetitions or holding. Okay? To make it more difficult, you go to Big Five when you're buying your strap for your hamstring stretch, get one of these, or you get a bike tire tube and you can cut it, tie it into a loop. Okay, the strap goes below your knees. Hands and knees again, I go into my fire hydrant position. I can either do repetitions, right? So maybe I do 10 of these, slow and controlled, or better yet, I hold. Okay, the goal would be, can you hold for a minute? Okay, what they showed, what they found with the theory behind doing a hold exercise is that that helps kind of just clear the pathway from your brain to the glutes, to the glute medius, right? So that muscle fires more readily as you need it. All right, fire hydrant. I'm gonna show you the hip cycle that I use. So it involves the fire hydrant. You can do it with resistance, or you can do it without. Let me show you first without, okay? So again, hands and knees. You're gonna do, let's say 10 hip extensions, right? So donkey kick, up. The sole of my foot goes to the ceiling. Let's say that was 9 and 10, okay? I'm gonna go into fire hydrant. Okay, let's say that was 9 and 10. I'm then gonna go into a forward circle with my hip. 10 of those, let's say that's 9, 10. And then I'm gonna go into a backward circle with my hip. Okay, 9, 10. Okay, so 4 exercises. Then I go to the other leg. If I want to do resistance, again, my band below the knees. Okay, and I can still do my hip extension, but now I have resistance. I can still do my hip abduction, resistance. I can still do forward circles, and I can do backward circles. And I promise you, if you do these with the resistance, you will definitely feel the burn, and you will feel it the next day, because these are muscles that many of us neglect. All right, last exercise I want to show you is like a single limb squat. So, okay, so you can do this in the chair, okay, or at a chair, at a table, at a bed, anything that you can sit on that's kind of a challenging height. And all you're going to do is you're going to be in on one leg, and I want you to practice sitting down and then coming back up. If you can do it with a mirror in front of you or with somebody in front of you, if you're like I have, like my camera in front of me, I am looking to see that my kneecap tracks over my second toe, or essentially what would be my pointer toe. Sitting back down. Okay? What I don't want to see is internal rotation falling that way. Okay? All right, I think that does it. All I'm going to have you do for this one is, because there's so many exercises, and your assignment with the reading is a little bit more than it has been. So just let me know what you thought of these exercises. And if you thought they were good, cool. If you thought, hey, can I see something a little easier, or can I see something more difficult, let me know that as well. Just let me know that you gave them a shot and what you thought. All right, and that will be due next Sunday. So Sunday should be the 24th. I'll put it in the description. Have a great week.